But the thing about the Writers League is you do not have to live in Texas. And in fact, especially when our programming really went virtual, we have people from all over the country who are a part of our community. And I have people who say to me all the time, there is nothing like this in most other states. I can't find this in other places. And I'm so glad that it exists and that I'm able to be a part of it. So we have members from all over. We do, of course, have a real strong connection to Texas, and we love our Texas.
Yeah. Good evening and welcome to Art After Dark, where you get to learn all about arts and culture in West Texas, and I get to live out my Dick Cavett fantasy. Good evening. My name is Randy Ham. I am the Executive Director of Odessa Arts, and I am thrilled tonight to finally welcome my very good friend, Becka Oliver from the Writers League of Texas. Becka, thank you so much for being here.
It's a thrill and an honor, so thank you.
No, I'm the one that's honored. You know, we were talking before we started the recording. This is your 6th time to come here for Literary Deathmatch?
That's what you say, Randy. I don't know that that's true. But
Are
I
you calling
believe
me
it.
a
You know
liar?
what? No, actually, it must be true because you're saying it, and you are always honest. But I mean, honestly, my calendar year is not complete if I don't come to Odessa and enjoy Literary Deathmatch and enjoy the beautiful people of Odessa who show up for it. So I feel really excited to be here once again, apparently for the 6th time.
Well, it's not Literary Deathmatch unless you're here, so I'm so glad that we were...
Well, now it's on tape. It's been recorded, and now you
Yes.
can never have it without inviting me.
Yes, that is very true. So now it is written down in stone. I was trying to remember when we met. What was the first thing that we did together?
I mean, I think it was Literary Deathmatch.
I think it was the very first
I think it was
Literary
the first time I
Deathmatch.
came here for literary, and I don't know how that came to be.
It was either our first or second book festival, and you called me and said, "Can Writers League set up a booth for the book festival?" And I said, "Absolutely, come on down. Hey, how are you with Literary Deathmatch?" And the rest is history.
Right. And I said, I can't believe that you have Literary Deathmatch, for folks who don't know this, is a very exclusive event. And not just anyone can put on Literary Deathmatch. You have to put it on officially with the person who created it, who you bring in for it.
Yeah.
Odessa is so lucky to have you and to have this program. I mean, there are not many cities around the world that can say they have Literary Deathmatch. So I think you're right. It was for your wonderful book festival. I came, I met and talked to a lot of writers. And then for some reason, you just invited me, random stranger, to actually participate in Literary Deathmatch as a judge. And it was so much fun.
Well, that's because from our very first email exchange, I knew we were going to be friends. I mean, we just have this great chemistry, and we think the same, and we say all of the same 4-letter words. So, yes,
which we are not going to say today. We're not going to say that,
unless
Randy.
we can do some sort of censoring where there's beep. But
so if we said one, it would have to be beeped out.
Yeah, it would have to be.
So if I said you'd have to beep that out. Okay.
There's actually a TV show or a movie that I saw not too long ago where someone was told not to curse, so every time they wanted to, they just said curse word.
Okay. We could try that.
We could try that.
For like Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah.
When they would say frack.
Yes, frack. Thanks for the shout out to Battlestar Galactica. Oh, that makes me
count
happy.
on it, Randy.
Yeah. So, how long have you been with the Writers League?
That's a great question. I have not been with the Writers League, or I've been with the Writers League longer than I've been coming here for Literary Deathmatch, which we established as 6 years.
Yes.
I started at the Writers League in 2013, so a little over 10 years. Last year was my 10-year anniversary.
Wow. Congratulations.
It's a great organization.
2013.
Yeah.
I started at Odessa Arts in 2014.
It's a very similar path.
Right. So we kind of started around the same time.
Yeah.
And
I bet there are a lot of young people in the arts world who look up to us and,
well, of course,
you know, artists who appreciate what we've done to further their careers. We've had a big impact, haven't we, Randy?
We have. And if any of you are out there and would like to make a financial gift to either Odessa Arts or the Writers League, or cash for Becca or myself, we're happy to take it.
Oh,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. That's good. I didn't
As a
know we
thank
could do
you,
that on
as
here.
yeah, I think a thank you
Nope,
is
can't say curse word, but we can solicit donations to our
donations.
personal funds.
Right.
Okay,
Make
I
it
love
out
it.
to cash. CASH.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I got to the Writers League in 2013. I had been coming to Texas and going to the conference that the Writers League hosts, excuse me, um, previously every year, now every other year. So I was a literary agent. I worked in publishing for many years, came here as an agent to the conference in Austin, and then just realized, I think I want to change my life, leave New York and move to Texas, and then ended up with this job. So kind of came full circle.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about the work that you do with Writers League. What is it? What do you do? How can people who might want to get involved with Writers League, how do they do
Sure.
that?
So the Writers League of Texas has been around since 1981. We started in the backyard of a group of writers in Austin who just wanted other writers that they could gather with and commiserate and talk about the writing life, the business of writing, these questions that they had. And slowly over time, the organization grew. There was a real need for that. There was need for community. And then programming was put in place, and slowly we became the largest literary arts organization in Texas. We put on year-round programs that are both some in person, some of them virtual, many of them virtual at this point. We really are an organization that is dedicated to supporting writers. So whether someone is just getting started, I often, when I go into a room full of folks who are at one of our programs, I ask people to raise their hand if they're a writer, and not everybody does. But then if you say, well, raise your hand if you write, some more people
Right.
will raise their hand.
Yes.
So it can often be a big piece of what we do is helping someone get the confidence to raise their hand at that first question. But we also work with and support writers who are publishing their 10th book. So anywhere in between, if you have a story to tell, if you're looking for other folks to gather with who are also in the literary space, we're a great organization to know about. So we are at writersleague.org is where you can find our website, and you can find a calendar full of events there. And we are also always happy to hear from folks, whether you email or you give us a call if you just want to know a little bit more about who we are and whether we would be a good fit for you.
Well, people know that Texas is replete with all of these books that are set in the state, and we have some writers that have come out, like Larry McMurtry, some national names. But I don't think people realize just the variety of talented writers that we have right here in the state of Texas that write everything from books that are set in Texas, that things that are not set in Texas, that are just all kinds of romance, historical dramas, nonfiction, memoirs, and you've had a hand in a lot of those. I mean, so many of the Texas authors that I know of through Writers League, including one of my favorites, who is Stacey Swan,
Ah,
who wrote Olympus,
who
Texas.
doesn't love Stacey Swan?
Right,
Yeah.
she is amazing. So it's really great that you're able to nurture writers at any stage in their career, and that they have a resource like that.
Yeah, and we also do a lot to help writers not only hone their craft, which is a big part of it. I will always say, as someone who is a former literary agent, as someone who worked in publishing for a long time, it's all about the manuscript,
Yeah.
first and foremost. It's all about the craft, but then it's such a mysterious world, that world of publishing. And so we do a lot to demystify that for folks and help them understand whether it's publishing their work in a journal or publishing, pursuing a traditional publishing deal or self-publishing, hybrid publishing. We do a lot to help people understand that. So Stacey would be an example of someone who went through an MFA program, honed her craft as a
Mhm.
brilliant writer, and appreciated some of the resources we had in terms of understanding or thinking about writing a query letter and approaching agents. And then, I would certainly not take any credit for the success that Stacey has had. She's in my writing group, so I have a little bit of a, hand in some of the feedback she got. But really, it can be for someone who's already done the MFA, they've already learned the craft, but maybe it's that other piece, that more mysterious piece of publishing that can be really helpful. So
Yeah, the process. I always say that editors are the unsung heroes of publishing. It's always nice to get that second set of eyes on a manuscript that is a little bit more impartial and has a little bit more of a knowledge of what works for a specific story or a
Hmm.
specific type of book, and be able to kill your darlings. Whereas, you know, if you wrote it down, it's harder to want to let go of things that maybe
Oh, sure.
someone else sees as not working, but is very precious to you.
Well, and even just having access to those gatekeepers, access to the literary agents, access to book editors, having the opportunity, that's what our conference does for folks. That's what our big virtual event that we're doing next year called the Agent Symposium does for folks. It puts those people that we sometimes put on this big pedestal. We're a little afraid of them. We're kind of
Yeah.
unsure about, how we can possibly convince them to work with us. And it brings them right in front of you, sitting across from you, where you can ask them questions and you can learn directly from them. So sometimes it's just that, right? Understanding how to connect with an editor, how to connect with an agent.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about a program you have called One Page Salon. It's very similar to Literary Deathmatch in some ways, but it's something. Well, I know it was
No
started
one
by
dies, which we know in literary deathmatch, at least three people. I mean, only
right.
one person
Spoiler
comes out
alert.
alive, right?
Yes. Which is
What if it was really, what if you brought people here to this beautiful building and you shut the doors and you said, only one of these writers is walking out alive tonight? That
now
would be
that we'd
wild.
have to jack up the ticket prices a little bit. But luckily, because of Literary Deathmatch, we're so happy to have ExcelER sponsoring Literary Deathmatch this year. So we will have some medical professionals on staff just in case.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes. But One Page Salon, now that was started by someone else who is a legend
A
in
dream. Hmm.
Texas literature, but Writers League and you have kind of taken ownership of that.
Yeah,
So,
so a little over 10 years ago, Owen Edgerton, who is a wonderful writer, both of prose, novels, short stories, but also a screenwriter. He has great success in Hollywood. He's such a cool dude. Owen started this reading series in Austin, and his idea was, I love reading series. I want to support all the writers in this community. So I don't want it to be one of those, okay, you have to have published, 5 books in order to get on the stage. But also, one of the things that sometimes is not the biggest pro of a reading series is that people kind of sometimes they go on and on and on, right? So
yeah,
Owen's idea was, what if I have readers who read one page, and not just one page from a novel that they just published, which is sometimes happens if
sure.
you've just published a book, but one page from a work in progress, one page from something
Yeah.
that they've never shared before. And so that started 10 years ago. It moved around to different venues in Austin. And then when the pandemic happened, I reached out to Owen and said, what if the Writers League partnered, gave you a space, a virtual space for the One Page Salon? So
Yeah.
we started doing virtually the One Page Salon. And when we were finally going back to in-person events, Owen invited us to partner formally with them. And now Owen has actually left Texas, which we don't like to talk about. And now I'm the host of the One Page Salon. So the Writers League has continued it. It happens once a month on the first Tuesday of the month, with the exception of next month, because we're not doing it on election night.
Yeah, I don't
So
think that
we're
would be a
we're
good
doing it
idea.
on November 12th next month. It happens in South Austin at a
Hmm.
place called Radio Coffee and Beer. But the idea is that you will have folks who, there's always 5 readers.
Hmm.
It's not an open mic, so I
Okay.
don't want to confuse folks. It's a set list of
Right.
readers,
It's
but
curated.
we love when someone comes up and says, I've never read my work before, can I read at the One Page Salon? We put you on a list, we get you up there eventually. But each person who reads, you'll have one person who has published several books, you'll have someone who has never shared their work in front of an audience before. And it's really special. And then we have a little bit of banter in between each reader. And it has become the literary event every month in Austin. So you sit in that audience and you see people who run bookstores, who run the Texas Book Festival, who, when they're in town, run Odessa Arts. So you look around the audience, you see published authors, you see really cool, interesting individuals who support the literary arts in Austin. And it's a pretty magical place.
It really is.
Yeah.
If you are ever in Austin, I highly recommend that you go check out One Page Salon. It's wonderful. It always has been, and you're doing a great job, kind of shepherding that legacy of Owen. And I would be remiss if I did not mention his beautiful wife, Jody,
Jody.
who was part of the typewriter rodeo as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been down for Literary Deathmatch a couple of
She
times.
won Literary Deathmatch
She did
one
win
year.
Literary Deathmatch one time.
I have a great photo of her with her medal.
Yeah. So Jody, Owen, we miss you, and we hope you'll come back and visit sometime soon. But I think the literary community is in good hands with you. I don't like to ask people their favorites of anything anymore because I think that's a little pejorative. But do you have some specific, maybe memorable authors or book projects you've worked on, or feel like a sense of pride that they have kind of maybe an author that's been recently published, or somebody that you've had a book that was a very difficult birth of that book?
It's so hard. The minute you started forming that question, I thought this is where my mind just goes completely blank. But
Right.
I'll mention somebody who I admire so much and is a great Writers League success story, but really is just a force in her own right. So there's a writer, she's a journalist, she's got amazing credentials, named Kate Winkler Dawson, and she lives in Austin. She and I met years ago and kind of talked about the process of she had so many nonfiction book ideas, and the process of putting a proposal together and what goes into that and which of these projects should I pursue. And she ended up coming to our conference, and I introduced her to a friend of mine, a literary agent, during the reception. And they hit it off, and she ended up, that agent, working with her and selling her book to another really great friend of mine who is an editor in New York. And her first book, oh my gosh, why? Now the name of the first book is going to elude me. But what Kate does is she writes these really cool sort of blended true crime narrative nonfiction. So her first novel was about the great smog in London in the 1950s. But at the same time, parallel to that, this man who was killing people and cutting them up and burying them under the floorboards in his home. And her look at this kind of mysterious, scary moment in London where everybody was inside, afraid of the air around them. It's called Death in the Air. And then you also have this character who's sort of lurking. It was very Devil in the White City, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then her next book was called American Sherlock, and it was about one of the earliest sort of adapters of a real scientific method for investigating crimes and using forensics to investigate crimes. And so she's an amazing writer, but she's also now started her own podcast. So she has she has gone far beyond, those humble beginnings of learning how to do a proposal and meeting an agent. But she's a beautiful writer. If you like that sort of nonfiction, true crime, I can't recommend her enough. And she's a cool person, just a really, really cool person.
Well, she sounds like someone who should be on Literary Deathmatch. I mean, true crime, deathmatch.
She
come on.
does know death very well.
Yeah, wow. So If the Writers League of Texas, do you have to be a resident of Texas to be a member of Writers League?
Oh, no. I was in New York in March and I did a meetup with our New York members of
Oh,
the Writers
wow.
League of Texas. So the thing, the really, we try not to keep it as a well kept secret. But the thing about the Writers League is you do not have to live in Texas. And in fact, especially when our programming really went virtual,
Yeah.
we have people from all over the country who are a part of our community. And I have people who say to me all the time, there is nothing like this in most other states. I can't
Right.
find this in other places, and I'm so glad that it exists and that I'm able to be a part of it. So we have members from all over. We do, of course, have a real strong connection to Texas, and we love our Texas
Yeah.
writers, and we have a book awards that we do every year. So we celebrate Texas writers every year. We have a manuscript contest to celebrate up and coming writers. So we will always, always be at the heart a Texas organization, but there are folks from all over the world who are a part of our community.
Do you ever have any other like states reach out to you to kind of help them create something like that in their own state or region?
It's more the folks who are already doing something similar to what we're doing. Like North Carolina has a really
Yeah.
great writers organization. They'll reach out to say, hey, let's, compare notes. Let's
Yeah.
talk about what's working for us. And I love that. I love
Yeah.
it when I can connect with other people in other parts of the country and kind of get a sense of what they're doing that's working. But I will say what we're doing works really well, and we're pretty special. Like you won't find an organization that gives as much to the people who are a part of it as we do. I believe that.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I've seen the work. I've seen the authors that are coming out of Writers League that have done some fantastic stuff. Uh, um, but I do want to suggest with your awards that you do not have an award for best book that only exists in your head. And there are a lot of people out there that I think could compete for that. And maybe if they
Hmm.
won that award, it would maybe motivate them to get that book out of their head.
Book that only exists in your head. I
Yeah.
actually, Randy, I know you're saying this and you're using your Dick Cavett wit when you say it, but I think that's a great idea. What could you? I mean, you have people. You know what? I'm not gonna work it out here because someone else is gonna take it. But
Yeah.
we're gonna talk more about this offline. It'll
Okay.
be the arts after dark conversation, and I want to do it.
I think it would be great. I
I love
really
it.
do. There is someone, and I'm not going to embarrass them by shouting out their name on this podcast, but I have a very good friend who has been talking about writing a book for years, and I know he can do it, and I know the book he wants to write, but it is still just in his head, and he needs someone besides me just to kind of nudge him out of
He
that.
needs the Writers League of
He
Texas.
needs the
But
Writers League of
it's
Texas.
almost like those great and these became like much, there were too many of them at some point, but there used to be really like one competition on Twitter every year where
Yep.
you had to remember when Twitter was like 140
Oh God.
characters or
Right.
whatever less
When Twitter was cool.
when it was actually Twitter,
Yeah.
that you had to pitch your book. It was like a pitch war, and agents would look at the pitch and reach out to you if they were interested. And it's almost like if we could do that, but it's you're pitching something that does not exist on paper. You're just
Yeah.
pitching something that's in your
Right.
head.
Oh my
So
God.
you'd have to do that. It would have to be a very short, quick, description, and then just a great group of judges, and then an award. It
It's kinda
sounds
like
like
Shark
Odessa
Tank.
Arts. You guys are good for like a couple grand for that, like for in terms of prizes.
Yeah,
We'll
you're saying
talk
that.
more.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that on camera. Uh, but I do think that it's something that could
Shark
happen. I
Tank.
mean, it's Shark Tank for books. It really is.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my God, we've just developed this whole new industry
You
model
have to
right
you
here.
have to throw this whole episode out because we can't let people take this. This
No,
is
we
too
can't.
good.
So we just need that censorship beep.
Ryan, you're gonna have to cut this
Right.
all this last little bit, all right? Bleep the from earlier and
and
cut
then
this
and then cut this
last, and
whole
then
last.
also bleep that one.
Right. So our episode's going to be like 3 minutes long. But that's all right.
Everybody wants to be friends with us now. They're watching
They
this and they're so excited.
they
Okay.
are. They are. We're gonna get so many follows from this. I'm just so
I don't
excited.
have any social media.
But everybody can follow us on YouTube.
Yes. Okay.
Well, Becca, I want to thank you so much for being here on this episode. I can't wait for us to do literary death match, and thank all of you for tuning in. I do want to remind everyone that right now is the membership drive for Odessa Arts. It helps support the work that we do. Become a member of Odessa Arts. You can visit odessaarts.org. You can also become a member of Writers League of Texas and support the great literature coming out of the great state of Texas. And until then, Becca, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And cheers.
Oh my gosh, just pure vodka
Right.
at 8 in the morning. Oh my gosh.
Edit.